Hello and welcome to the Free Outside Show. We have an awesome show today, but first we're diving right into Trail TMZ. Are you ready? So William Goodge, Goodge, he ran across Australia, a trans-Australian run, supposedly. So there are some things out there on the internet that maybe this run involved some watch muling or some sitting in the van while it was traveling. I don't know the facts. I wasn't out there. I'm just reporting on what's being reported. And while this isn't on the trail, it might as well be because it's the cover of Let's Run. Do you ever want to dive into just a garbage pool? Check it out over there because the threads and the comments get insane, especially if you want David Roach rumors and content. It's pretty interesting over there. But anyways, so William Goodge, not Gooch, Goodge, ran across Australia. He was raising money. He's done a number of these runs in the past, running a long ways. And then this other guy, William Cockrell, another William, he started raising concerns, and he started by saying the heart rate data looked off. Now, if you've listened to the podcast or get coached by me or anything, you know that wrist heart rate data is fallible. But usually over something so long, it might be in the realm of possible. It depends on if he's wearing a heart rate monitor or not. But he said that this heart rate data, it showed 92% of his run across the country in zone 1. And that is a very low zone. So that would be probably the slowest you could possibly run, or maybe it would even be walking for you. Most people, zone 1 is very slow. And especially over such a long period of time, you'd expect to see a lot more data in that supposed zone 2, that mythical realm of zone 2 that people just love to talk about on social media. I can get into my thoughts on that some other time, but we're in the midst of Trail TMZ. And so they suspected watch muling. Why? Because they showed, in the data, it showed a 23-second 400-meter PR, which that would be a world record, so that's pretty cool. If you actually did that, you should probably submit it to the World Records Association or whoever holds such records. And if not, it could have been just an issue with data. We've all seen that where a watch glitches and something weird happens. But he was also tracking it with a Garmin InReach Mini, which showed that at some points he was traveling 80 kilometers per hour, which is like 55 miles an hour. I didn't do the math, I'm just guessing, but it's quite fast. Also would be a world record, so should submit that as well. But at the end of the day, between the two data sources of the watch and the InReach showing both speed and heart rate being off, that raises enough questions for this to be a controversy that people are discussing. So this is our live update from Trail TMZ. And in our next story, about 8 months ago, Camille Herron was involved in the Wikipedia scandal that shook our community. Actually, I think it was more just like, wow, this is kind of weird. It wasn't that big of a deal. And at the time, I went right in. I asked her to come on the podcast. And I'm only sharing this story because I'm just a little hurt that recently she posted on social media that in honor of, I think it's Autism Awareness Month or Neurodivergent Awareness Month or something, that she was willing to go on podcasts. I just feel sad she never came on mine because we would have just discussed everything perfectly. All right, that was Trail's TMZ. I think I should make this more of a regular segment, so if you guys have stories you want me to dive into and share on here and put a spin on and make fun or interesting, shoot them to me, jeff@freeoutside.com, or just DM me on Instagram. Free Outside Podcast is there. Also, if you subscribe there, that is awesome too. All right, today's bulk of the episode is an interview, a conversation, if you will, with Aaron Fleisher, who is a fellow 5-time Cocodona finisher, and we just talked through the journey from thru-hiking to stage racing to Cocodona to 200s. He's finished 13 of them. And we talk a little bit about Tour de Géants and the different 200s out there, but also how do you finish these things? And also this long suspected thought I've had that most people running Cocodona can sleep way more than they actually do and probably have the same finish time and probably a better experience. So me and Aaron get into that debate, even though I think we're on the same side. But I just think especially like mid-pack and stuff, if you sleep a little more, especially earlier, you're going to be moving faster, have a better experience, have more sleep, and not have to hallucinate so much, of which we do get into hallucination stories because Aaron has done so many 200s and been out there in video game mode, as he says. All right, this show is brought to you by John G, Janji. Just get one of their visors. Their Vortex gloves are great. Their rain runner, rain jackets are good. All their shorts have pockets. Their bras are great. I haven't tried them personally, but I've heard they're amazing. They have a pocket in the back for your phone. Just go buy something there if you want or if you need it. I wouldn't promote anything that I don't actually use myself, and just tell them that I sent you, because that's how we get money to keep this trail TMZ on the road. Also, GarageChromeGear.com, check them out. Headlamps, battery packs, both of which I'm getting for my Appalachian Trail thru hike. They have bidets over there, portable ones, so you can use them outdoors. They're not just a gag gift, but they can be. And then our last sponsor, CS Coffee, csinstant.coffee. It's premium coffee that you can make in the backcountry. So just check it out. If you're a coffee connoisseur, that's a good word, $10 word for me. Check them out. All right. Subscribe to the podcast. 5-star reviews help. Let's get on with the show. Here is Aaron Fleisher. All right, we got Aaron Fleisher on the podcast, 5-time Cocodona finisher. So we talked a little offline, but how does this end? There's 6 of us who have done it every single year. How do you think it ends with one person left doing it? Or will it just be the longest last person standing that ends when we hit 6 feet under?
Well, I think Andy's made it super clear that he's just never going to stop until he's the last man standing. And, he's the street king. So he's made it clear that's where he stands. So we could all kind of get together and just hand him over the crown at the same time and just say, fine, Andy, you win, or we can choose to make it very difficult for him. So I don't know. What do you think?
I think just we'll go year by year, but we'll make it difficult on him for one more year.
I wonder if it adds any pressure if we do like a yo-yo, or we start course marking backwards. We could say, I don't know, technically you're always going to be sort of behind one now.
Yeah. Would we get 2 belt buckles if we did the course backwards and turned around and ran it the other way?
Well, I was thinking if we wanted to sort of like combine our finishes, we're already at the 2,500-mile buckle. So we could just get together and sort of share a buckle.
And then we all like keep it for 2 months out of the year and mail it between us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just,
That'd be great marketing for them too.
we have to just stay the same waist size and we just keep trading it back and forth. And
That's it. So how did you get into this whole ultra running thing? Because it seems like kind of out of nowhere in 2019, you decided to start paying for races.
right. Yeah. Um, I think kind of similar to you, it sort of sounds like it was a world I didn't even really know about and just kind of jumped in from the deep end. I mean, I never ran to begin with, right? So I didn't grow up running. I thought for a while, even when my dad was in his 50s, he had a license plate that said trail runner, and he'd go out on the trails, and I'd go out and walk. I'm not going to like run with you, like who does that, right? So um, I actually found out about this on my 2017 PCT through hike, and I ran into the PCT 50 miler down in Southern California that they run, and I think they launched that off from that Boulder Oaks, it's like
Mm-hmm.
that mile 26,
Yep.
and I showed up and I thought it was trail magic, and so I went up to go get my snacks, and they told me that it was actually part of a race and I wasn't really invited. So I actually got rejected on my first trail magic ever.
That's amazing. But that's also how you found,
And
I
then,
guess, trail running.
yeah, so I started hiking out, and I'm talking to these it was sort of like mid pack, back of the pack coming down from Laguna. and they all looked completely miserable. And I was just trying to cheer them on. And I told them that they were sort of crazy for running 50 miles, and they thought I was crazy for hiking to Canada. And it kind of seemed like there was kind of a shared respect there. And so I think the initial seed was sort of planted then. I didn't even know that that existed. And I didn't think running was really cool. And then in 2019, actually, my dad, who had run a bunch of rock and roll marathons and stuff like that late in his life and was trail running in outside of Vegas, um, he was fighting breast cancer, men's breast cancer. And so I wanted to find kind of a run to raise money to do like sort of in his honor, to raise sort of money to bring awareness to the cause. Um, and I was like, I'm not running a marathon because I don't want to run. So I was literally Googling the longest possible race I could find so I could hike. And, I just realized there was this new world where I could hike and sort of call it running. And so Grand to Grand is like the thing I found. It was just as a stage race. And I kind of said, well, this is like in my comfort zone. You sort of just, it's like a supported through, like they were calling it self-supported, but I think we sort of both know that like when they carry their tent for you and they give you hot water and water, you're like, this is my version of supported. So,
Very
um,
supported. Yeah.
yeah, so I just jumped right into that race first. And kind of had a couple big lessons. One, it's really hard to raise money and ask for people for money for something that you care about. And then and secondly, just the miles on paper, like when it says 57 miles or one of the longer stages, which I had never done. And turns out that that's when you put that through deep sand, that's a really long way to go.
Didn't you wear like sandals for most of it?
I did the whole thing in bedrocks and board shorts. Um, and
The most through hiker style applied to
Yeah,
ultra
and
running.
and I showed up with, like, a sub 5-pound base weight, and then I carried, like, 20 pounds of produce. Like, I carried, like, avocados and, like, carrots and apples and stuff. Like, I just thought I was gonna have a lot of time at camp, so I wanted to bring, like, really good food. Like, I brought fancy ramen. Like, I was dicing up, like, green onion at camp and, like, ginger and stuff, and
You've got like a whole kitchen, like you're chopping onions and stuff while other people just are miserable eating regular ramen.
right, and I think that was the first confidence builder, right? Because I went out there committed to never running a mile, and I finished pretty mid-pack and felt like my body got stronger as the week went on, like, deep in the week, and so I think that was kind of the start of it, and then,
Hold on. So
yeah.
you showed up and vowed to not run a single mile of a race that brands itself as a running race.
Yes, exactly.
It's pretty
Yes.
awesome. Yeah, I mean, this is great fuel for the fire on, how fit and good at running you have to be to trail run, and it's probably not very good at running.
Especially when it was like, I was the guy with like, "What's your experience? Have you run 100? No. 50? No." Like, "No."
Yep.
And you're in sandals. If you've been there, people show up in these full desert suits,
Yep.
and so I felt intimidated. I was like, "I am so out of my league here. I have none of the right equipment. What am I doing?" But I think some of the things were a gift. Like when you have that top layer of sand and it gets really hot out there, underneath that layer, it's like kind of cooling. So I felt like I was like cooling down my feet. And
Mhm.
with all the sand, the sandals are not a bad way to go out there, actually. Um,
Totally. Yeah. When I did it, I got 2nd overall just by basically doing the through hiker mentality. I didn't really have the great gear for that specifically. In fact, I didn't even sleep in the tents they provided. I just slept as far from camp as they allowed to just like sleep better because everyone was snoring and stuff in the camp. So yeah, I was like cowboy camping, did it through hiker style, and it worked pretty good. And I think we both seen success kind of taking on Cocodona with the same mindset.
yeah, which I did the same thing when I signed up for Cocodona. It was a little. I don't know if you want to go through that. I feel like we should exchange years. Like, what brought you there year one, and you want to go to year two, or do we just go? What brought you there all 5 years, or
Yeah, let's just start with the first year. So I had done 150K when I lived in Colorado, just like 5 years, 4 years prior. I didn't have any experience with drop bags with crew or pacer, so I showed up with none of them. But I'd done I just DNF'd at the Barkley Marathons and met Jamil, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we're doing this race if you want to be in it." But my dad had had open heart surgery like the week after Barkley Marathon, so I was back at my parents, and I was like, "Okay, Jamil, if my dad is good enough that I can leave and go run this race, I'm in." So I just hung around with my uh, dad a couple more weeks and walked around with him, and then he was all good. And so I drove down to Arizona and just showed up with I had a running pack, but I just threw socks in it because I didn't really know how the drop bag scene worked. And when they said your drop bag wouldn't go to every single location, it was like, well, how am I going to know what I want in my bag at mile 200? So I just put extra in my pack and just went about it from there. And then halfway through, I texted my friend Bryce in Phoenix and was like, "You should come pace me." He's also a thru hiker. It's like everyone else has pacers, and it seems like that makes things a lot easier. So that's kind of my first experience with Cocodona. Even though it was really hard and I was so out of my element, I never had any thoughts of quitting. I had such a blast the whole time. It was just like this whole different world that I didn't even know existed. What about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, how do you think the through hiking background kind of helps out with that day one?
I
Because
think
like
it yeah. I think it's
yep,
huge for, like, 2 different reasons. Day 1 in the climbing, you know how to move on that, but also you are adept at dealing with every challenge you can hit, even one that, like, ruins your day through hiking, and you know there's a next day, and I think a lotta ultra runners just quit when it's like, "Oh, my stomach, I can't handle anything, I'm tired, I rolled my ankle," and they're like, "I'm just gonna quit," whereas on a through hike, you're like, well, I still gotta set up camp and keep going. So you just distance yourself so far from quitting during a through hike, I think, that when you're ultra running, it's a lot easier to just be like, I had a bad race, but I still finished because that is pretty much what I signed up for. I don't really care about the overall time.
yeah, like I'm sure you've kind of heard that. I've always was sort of told earlier on, like, don't quit a through hike like in your first week. And so if you think about it, like you're having a bad day, day three. I remember there used to be my mind, like, it's not even day 8 yet. Like I can't think about this yet, you know?
Yeah, you're told it's gonna be miserable for, like, a week or 2 on a through hike, and
Yeah.
it's like, ultra runners have never experienced the not miserable part because their race is always over before it's actually good.
Right. And so, that day one, I remember the first year, like, I mean, I was really intimidated going in because, I knew that there were some names that were like pros and, I didn't really have any race experience and I, I didn't even know I could do it. I mean, for you, you probably had already had some really big days on trail or big FKT efforts. Like before the first year of Cocodona, aside from that one day in Grand de Grand, I hadn't even gone over 40 miles really before. Like even when I was through hiking, I would get comfortable doing 30 something miles a day once you get your trail legs. It was like that was sort of normal, but that included swimming in lakes and having snacks. And you would just walk from sunrise to sunset and just accidentally do 33, 34, 37, whatever it was. And so it was just on paper. It was like, I think I could do 550s because I don't have to filter water and they're sort of feeding me and my pack's light. Like it just sort of seems like it makes sense. Like the difference of these extra 13 miles, like I have to just manage my stop time and it should just work out like that. So the distance isn't intimidating, right? But then
Yeah.
the first day I remember um starting to get confidence. This is when I almost started questioning if I was even a good person because as other people were so miserable, I started to like build confidence of like, I don't know, like I don't have water either, but I'm not that demoralized over it, right?
Yep, yep.
Um and so it's like you would see people kind of dead on the side of the trail, like, what's wrong? Are you okay? Like, I don't have water. I'm like, well, nobody has water. Like, like
Yeah.
you don't have to cry over it. And it's not going to get you to water if you just like, and so to me, it's like I started to kind of like process things in my head. And I'm like, well, I've been out in the Mojave Desert before, 12 miles away from water when it's 90 degrees outside. And the difference is you're looking at a crowdsourced app that a stream might be running, like if you're
Yep,
lucky when you get there. And now you're like 100% there's water up there. Like you have to just get to it. Like you know that there's
yep.
going to be water at this aid station. Like,
Yeah.
so I
I
think that
think I had
mindset,
yeah, I
yeah,
had the similar thing where it clicked in of like, all right, maybe I need to rest or go slower, but I need to make it to the top of this. It doesn't really matter how long it takes, but that's where the water was when it's like, oh, there's still 5 miles left and we're all out of water. It was just like, okay, this just happens. I've actually gone way further than that. It's going to be okay. But yeah, there was a person laying in, there's like that little tiny pocket of mud, and a person was just laying in it. Like, what are you doing? This is a race. This is so weird. But
Yeah.
yeah, so you started getting that confidence passing people, and then yeah, where did it go from there?
Well, also, like, I was going into it with, like, 0 expectations. Like, I had signed up for the Triple Crown that year, right? Just
Yeah.
off the like, it was like, "Oh, I did this stage race. Now I found out that you can actually just go and just not sleep. Like, what's that like?" So I just went right for the Triple Crown, and I think a big part of it was, like, even at Grand to Grand, I realized, like, "Oh, maybe I don't have to be gone for, like, a whole summer to have, like, a really, like, crazy adventure for, like, a week." Like, you kinda get some of the same
Mhm.
feels and, like, adventurous sort of experience out of it. So, it was like I signed up for this Triple Crown, and I was like, I think I need to get one under my belt." So I signed up for Cocodona, like, 2 weeks before. I think I was, like, the next to last person to sign up, and I was really, like, undertrained, and it was more just, like, in my head that I had hiked years before and done 30-mile days, so it might still sort of be in my system and apply here, but, like, I didn't have anything to kinda so I also felt like I guess I was on a training run. Like, in my head, it was like, "Let me just go out and get one under my belt and just have an experience, and it'll be a confidence builder." So I was, like, telling people that I was out, like, on a training run for, like, the Triple Crown in my
Yeah.
first year. And obviously, I got pretty humbled. Like, I'm not gonna say it was way harder than what I thought it was gonna be, like, way harder.
Yeah, I mean, you did pull off a finish though, so you did it.
I never really believed it was like like that you have no information. I had no idea how special, like, an inaugural year was at the time. I'm not sure maybe you didn't either, because it's like,
No.
you just don't know anything about the course, and it felt very much like a through hike. Like, people would say it's, 8 miles, and you just assumed it was gonna be 16 and 3 times harder than what they're gonna tell you, and there was always gonna be no water and no food. Like, you just so it was like when which I started, I think everything about it was a through hike experience in my head. Like, even after that first day, I got some trail magic at the top of the Bradshaws, and I was completely toasted that first day. I was, like, almost had the shakes at Lane Mountain because my body was shutting down, and, um, I got some good advice from our favorite photographer,
Yeah.
Howie, and I didn't know who Howie was. He was just behind me, and he said, "Hey, you might wanna get out of here before the medical people see you." Um So, I kinda just started stumbling down the road, and some kinda young kids popped out, and they were looking where the party was, and I was really demoralized, and I was like, "I don't know, I just, I hiked here from Black Canyon City, and I think their heads exploded, and they gave me a Michelob Ultra, and I had chugged that Michelob Ultra, and there was something about that beer, it kinda brought me back to life, and then it made me thirsty, and I started drinking water, and it got me to Crown King, I started drinking soup, and then I think I got another beer at Crown King. So if you want to get into this, I will say I think I have the self-proclaimed record for the most amount of beers consumed at Cocodona and still getting a finish.
Yeah, walk me through the other time. So how many did you get in this finish?
So, like, no but, like, nothing was really happened, like, all at once. I think they were all, like, individuals, but, like, it started off with that kinda trail magic
Yeah.
experience, and then I went to Crown King asking for one, and they're like, "Well, we don't serve beer at aid stations," but the captain was like, "Yeah, just come with me to my truck," and then I got a beer there, and then I think the same thing happened down at the next aid station in Arasta. I went there, and I was talking about how all the other aid stations were giving me beer. The guy was like, "Well, then I'll give you a beer." And so then I kinda had one there, and then you know what happens at whiskey. I ended up with, like they actually at whiskey, they go, "Do you want a Bud Light or do you want, like, a craft beer?" And I go, "I'll take a craft beer." They go, "Sorry, we're out of craft beer. You can have a Bud Light." And then so I end up with a Bud Light and a shot, and while I'm drinking the Bud Light, another guy comes over and goes, "I heard you're from San Diego. Don't you want, like, a Ballast Point or, like, a Sculpin?" I'm like, "Sure." And then so I just was saying yes to sort of, like, everything. Um
Wow. So that's like 6 drinks and you're one third of the way through the course. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's
I
probably why you improved 27 hours from that time over the years.
That might have something to do with it. It's possible. I think there's a scene. There's another runner out there. Her name's Kimmy, and she was an inaugural year.
Mhm.
She had completed it, and I was sitting at the top of the Eldon in like a windstorm at the end of the race at like 3:30 in the morning, and I'm lounging like eating a rib, and I'm literally double fisting. At this point, I'm like, I think I'm done. I just have two beers like in my hand. Um, so I've cleaned that up since then. So you're right. Like that was just kind of a year one experience.
Well, the inaugural year, I don't know if people realize, like, of course, Aravaipa does their best, but no one knew anything about what it was gonna be like out there. They didn't even know quite how the weather was gonna be that time of year, and it was just so much harder with so much more required of people compared to even the required, I think it was 2 liters recommended back then on what to carry that yeah, people were just hurt, and I think a lot of them DNF'd by Crown King that year.
Yeah. And yeah, I just had no idea. I just felt like I didn't really see anybody after that, right? So
Yeah, it was just so much different. And I don't know, some of the climbs were so hard. There was that because you went around the backside of Sedona and then climbed up, I don't know, a road section up there by some power lines, and I just remember the whole thing just felt so out there, such a wild experience of like, holy cow, there's going to be an aid station open at 2 a.m. when I get to this next spot. This is like slightly different than through hiking. Yet all I have to do is through hike.
yeah, and if you don't have the race experience, right, we didn't even know what to expect out of an aid station.
No, I
Like,
didn't have a nutrition plan or anything. It was like, whatever's here, I have to eat.
no, it feels like in hindsight I survived off of dried mango and beers. I don't know, like
I had those Stroop waffles. I ate like 200 of them the first year.
I remember one time I went to one of the aid stations. It was out in the plateau, and I just wanted a plain potato, and I asked them for a plain potato, packed in my backpack, and hiked down and realized it was a raw potato they gave me.
You were just carrying a raw potato on the course. So, okay, you get through the inaugural year, and are you still stoked on 200s? Like, what is the realization when you're out there? Is it like, this adventure is awesome, or is it more like, holy cow, that was insane?
It was definitely holy cow, it was insane, and there's actually an email out there that exists where I sent Jamil and Steve an email right afterwards telling them that I wouldn't change anything about the race. I told them I had the greatest time ever. It was one of the best adventures of my life. They should never, ever change anything about the race, despite what anybody else says, because it is awesome and it's way harder and it's supposed to be hard. And then I also told them I'm a one and done in the ultra scene and I'll never be back again. And you won't see anything, you won't ever see me again. And I'm more of a through hiker and I'm not an ultra runner. And it's just kind of like, thank you again. It's sort of like been nice knowing you.
Oh my gosh. So you send this, so you say, don't change anything, but also I'll never run this again. So that doesn't work. And then also that you'll never be back. And here you are having done it every single year.
Yeah. Yes.
Did you write that while descending Eldon or something? Like,
No, no, it was literally like maybe a couple days. Like I was probably already driving back, like fully digested and like smiling about the adventure. And was just like, this is just how I feel about it. Yeah.
oh, oh my gosh. Wow. And then so you do you continue with the Triple Crown quest that year?
Yeah, I did. But remember that was also when Tahoe was run in September. It wasn't yet run in June.
Okay, yeah.
And so that was Keldor Fire year. So I still went and did Bigfoot and Moab, but Tahoe was canceled. And and so I ended up just signing up for the Triple Crown again for the following year. Because I like wanted to do it. And then they ended up moving Tahoe to June. So then yeah, that rolled into sort of year Cocodona where I went back and did the same sort of thing again, only actually with Tahoe. So and then
Okay.
it was Wes and a group of us were like the first, whatever, 5 or 6 people to do the Triple Crown plus Cocodona because that was the first year it was actually possible to do.
That's insane. Yeah. Does your body handle the quick turnaround pretty well? Do you
It
even
did.
run between them?
I think that was the win of that year, but you have to remember, I also was like, when so I also didn't run during that inaugural Cocodona, like, at all, probably sounds like almost similar to you. Like I went in
Yeah.
there with the intention of like never running. So when I when I rolled over to the next year of the Triple Crown, it was also my intention. I was like, I'm going to do this entire thing and never run a mile. Like I wasn't even there yet. I was just committed on having like the most amount of fun. I'm like, I'm going to eat the most food from aid stations. I'm going to bag all the lakes. There's even like pictures like at Bigfoot and some of the other courses where they do outbacks like up to peaks.
Yep.
And well, you've probably paced out there. I know you've
Yeah. Yep.
crude. Okay. And but they don't always bring you to the actual peak. Like they bring you like just short
Yeah.
sometimes. And there's like a little bit of a quick scramble or kind of a couple class 2 or 3 moves kind of just to get up and sort of bag the survey marker. And I was always like, I'm not, I didn't come up here just not to actually bag the peak. So I still had this like through hiker brain where I'm just up like doing bonus peaks, and bagging lakes and all those kind of things. So I actually did all 4 of those 200s again in 2022 without running.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think that's how when we're on like year 40 of doing Cocodona, that's how it's going to be. We're going to be like back of the Packers who are like swimming in the granite dells and stuff, like just not caring out there.
Yeah, we're gonna be asking permission to see if we can like multi-sport it, like kind of bring our own pack raft and just paddle across and
Like having bird watching competitions because we'll be old.
yeah.
Like whoever can get more, see more birds than Andy wins.
Actually play more golf than Kevin and
Yeah, we book a round of golf together while we're out there in Munds
yeah,
Park.
just quick 9 at Munns and
So what drew you to come back for that second year? Was it so that you could do Cocodona and the Triple Crown that year, or was it just you thought that was a stupid email to send and you decided to come back?
no, I was actually very committed to not coming back and that was the time where you could still sign up last minute. So I was another late sign up the second year and it was 100% peer pressure the second year. It was not, I think that's the thing that I wasn't expecting year one is that I had jumped into a community and I didn't know it. Like, right. So all of a sudden you had this bond and this common experience. And, that was kind of our jumping into even the ultra community. And so then it felt like I had all these new friends and they're like, come on back for year two. And
Yep.
I made promises to them like, no, I'll come back and like pace you or help you out or something, but like I'm not going to come back and run. And so I think that really had to sit with me for a long time. And eventually I was just like, I want to go back and hang out with my friends and I'm going to go sign up again. So I think year two was like most driven actually by like the community,
Hmm.
pulling me back.
And then from there you're just hooked. You have to do it every year, or was it
No,
still
no.
up and down?
So that year two, I got excited. I'm not sure about you with the fire reroute. So I'm like, oh, at least
Yeah.
there's new trails. And I get this is like not the same thing. They've changed so much of the course, right? They changed the whole descent down Mingus. I mean,
Yeah.
now looking back, right, we've had 5 years with 5 different courses. So
Totally. Yeah.
yeah,
Very different courses.
I
It's
mean, you can
crazy.
talk about course records, but it's always going to be in the eyes of the beholder about like, I mean, we can analyze every year's course and conditions up and down and which ones are easier and harder. I mean, maybe that's for a separate thing, the full down like Cocodona debate
I
about the best.
mean, we should. I would say I put inaugural year Michael Versteeg against anyone. I think that drive and passion, I think he'd win any year.
I, people don't know, like we were talking about a year one, they just don't know. I mean, no water caches, no water support.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you and I both know how different that, ascending up to the plateau is after.
Oh,
There was
yeah.
just a lot of different conditions. Those were dune buggy trails. You were breathing in a lot more dirt back then.
Way more dust. Yeah.
It was like 6 degrees up at that plateau. Like it was freezing.
Freezing. Yeah. We saw Starlink. We thought aliens were attacking us. Me and my friend Bryce, who came out for the end. First
No,
time I'd ever seen
I saw those at
Starlink.
the end. I was laying against a tree and I actually asked them if I could finish the race before they captured me. I thought I was going to get sucked up into UFO and I think I was at mile 220 and I said, "Why does it have to be now? I'm so close to the finish line. Like, can I at least just finish this thing and then you guys click me?"
Yeah. We were freaking out about him. and Bryce wasn't hallucinating, so it was valid. It was just like, what in the world is happening here?
I didn't have a pacer, and I was scared to say something because I was convinced that if I said something, they were gonna, like, lock me up at the finish line for, like, hallucinating or seeing things.
Okay, so year 3, you're also a late entry. We got
Yeah.
sidetracked with our Mike
Yeah.
Versteegloff.
As well, thanks for bringing us back around. That takes one of us. Yeah, year 2 was late entry and, was again not about running. It was like, I'm just back for, like, another adventure. It was an adventure. The community brought me back. A unique course.
Yeah,
Yeah, what about you? Were you immediately a quick turnaround for year 2?
that's a good question. I think that's when my aunt was like, "Oh, if you wanna do it, I'd love to crew you." And it was like, "Okay, I guess I'll do it." And so that's yeah, that's kinda just how I decided to go back. I don't even think I was on the fence. I think I just needed a nudge to just sign up, and that's sort of how I ended up in that race again. And that year, I knew a lot more what was going on. I knew I had, like, a crew. Um, yeah, I was just, like, excited to actually know how to do this whole community like, the first year in the parking lot, I just camped in my car. I didn't know a single person, just checked in, didn't know anyone. And then by the second year, I actually knew people out there, so I don't know, it just made it, like, a cool, different, unique experience of, like, now I have new friends, I gotta go run 250 miles with them.
Yeah, I mean, I had no crew or pacers in that year 1. In year 2, I had a buddy come out and, like, drive my 4Runner around at the time. So, it definitely felt like, okay, this is gonna be a different thing. I'm sharing this sort of with a friend and just because you had those out and backs, like, he could just leave his car at Munn's and do the out and back with me, and then I think he paced me the last 37 from Tut
Tut
Hill
Hill,
as well.
yeah.
So, that was the first time I ever had some company out there and had crew, and so it was a different experience, but it made it kind of fun versus that solo adventure that we had the year before.
Yeah, we really, just lucked into it. I think it just takes adding one thing, and then it's like, "Okay, well, with a couple pacers or a buddy around, this is a totally different experience. Now I gotta come back for it next year." And that's how I think the course changing, it works in its favor, or even this year with the weather, is
Yep.
like every year feels so different. It doesn't feel like I've done the same course 5 years. It feels
N No,
totally unique.
agreed, agreed. So then
Yeah.
what happens then? Are you automatic for year 3 after 2
I think
or
Air
what brought you?
Vipa asked me to do some podcasts for them, interviewing people doing Cocodona, and then it was just like, I guess I'll do it too. So I think it was like some sort of agreement there. And then after 3, I'm hooked. From 3, it's like 4, 5, 6, boom, let's go. I don't know. I think it after that 3rd year, knowing that it was gonna sell out pretty quick, um, I just kept watching like maybe it was last year, Spaces, just every time I refreshed, another spot was gone. It was like, "Oh, just sign up for it. If you're spending this much time looking at it, you obviously care." So that's kinda how I ended up in it. Yeah, what were you pretty hooked after 3 years too?
So after that second, I think that was the first time I was like, you know what? I could play denial and wait around and just and not and claim I'm not going to sign up and then sign up later, or I could just save the $100, whatever early discount, and
Yeah.
just admit to myself I'm probably going to sign up anyways, and might as well just sort of do it. Um, so yeah, I think I signed up right away or pretty close afterwards after the second year. But also I had just kind of I was gonna do the Triple Crown, but I think that was the first time I thought like, "Hey, if I came back to this thing, I wonder, like, what it would be like to, like, race at the end," or I'd, like, never actually like, it was like,
Like,
I think that
try, yeah.
yeah, I don't know, I think that thought kinda, like, crossed my head, and it was like, "Uh-huh, like, what if I did it like these other people, and I just, like, actually got a crew and some pacers and just even had a baseline that, like, I have no idea, I've just been messing around, like, I have no clue," right? So
Yeah.
I think that's was an early kind of stage to it, and it was also, like, I had just hired a coach, and I was like, "Ah, let me kinda learn how to run." Like, what if I know it takes years to kind of build up that kind of zone 2 base, but I thought like, if I just started, even if I was only a year into it, like
Mhm.
what difference does that make? And would I be completely trash? Like I was so convinced that even if you run like a little bit, like he was going to mess up my hiking. And so I didn't know. And I was like, like, let me get a coach and start to learn a little bit how to run and then see how that fits. And year 3, I was a little torn because I was always having a good time. And I thought that that was kind of my secret sauce. Like I'm out here having more fun than probably anybody else, it felt like.
Mhm.
And that seems to be what's working, but at the same time, I want this like race experience. So like, how do I mix these two? And so I decided that I was just gonna through hike again to Sedona, and then Joe Corsian was gonna pace me from Sedona to the finish. So I was like, I'll essentially have a solo through hike experience with a crew, and then just get there and sleep a bunch, and then wake up, and then I'll have this other sort of experience. That's like the way I thought about it. And so I have a spreadsheet still. I didn't care about like a time at all. I just woke up in Sedona. I had slept for like 6 hours. And then Joe was there and he said, "Hey, do you have like a goal at all?" And I didn't realize that Joe and I were friends, but we hadn't spent a lot of time on the trail. And I just told him that I wanted him to like, I wanted a race experience and I wanted to like see what he could get out of me. And that's like my only instructions I gave him. Right. So,
And he probably can't operate very well with, like, an intangible goal, like,
oh, yeah, so
yeah.
he picks me up out of the aid station, and I had never done and we get a half a mile out and his headlamp dies, and I had to, like, loan him a headlamp, and so I'm like, "Oh, is this the way pagers work? They just loan things from they borrow things off of their runner?" Um, and so he says to me, like, "Oh, do you have a goal at all?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know, I think double digits sounds good, like, like and also my lucky number's 9, like, 99 sounds like a kind of a fun number." And he, like, did some math for me, and he's like, "Well, we have to make it from, like, Sedona to, like, the finish line in, like, 26 hours. Like, you're gonna have to move a little bit to do this." And I'm like, "Okay." And then so I was just like, I'm fresh off of sleep and I'm still, like, hiking and I'm resisting running and Joe's like, obviously I'm in a good mood, so he's not really pushing me. He's just like, "Ah, you're doing good. Like,
Yeah.
like, you're hiking 19, 18, 17, 16. Like, you're just keep doing it." And then we get to the end and he starts getting a little nervous around Tut Hill. And he had no 200 experience at the time. He had never even paced anybody. So I made a comment to him going to Walnut Canyon. I said, I think I just went to a green screen, which had happened a couple times. It's like my vision kind of goes green and I kind of feel like I'm in like an 8-bit video game, like an Atari video game or something.
Yeah.
And I thought it was kind of fun. It happened once at Bigfoot. And so I said it like an exciting way, like, "Oh, this is going to be cool. We're in video game mode."
Yeah.
And he freaked out. He's like, "Is this something? This sounds really serious, you know?" Um, and so we had an experience out there and eventually we got to Eldon and I had thrown my goals in the garbage bag. I was like, the math is not making sense. Like this is not gonna happen. And it's okay. It's not that big of a deal. And he said, "You're gonna regret this for like the rest of your life. This is a big deal. And like and it's gonna hurt, but you could follow me and you could do anything you want to for like 2 hours." And I didn't believe him, but I just started following him and he was telling me like rip gels and all these terminology I'd never heard before, but we ended up making it by like 4 minutes and I think it felt pretty good. Um, and so I was like, okay, like that was a fun experience. And then that became sort of like, okay, I want to come back the next year and see if I can like cut down that time.
Do you think you would have regretted that for the rest of your life?
No, but
No, that's the beauty of Joe, I think. He'll get the most out of you, but in the moment, you're like, "I don't think I will."
well, and I felt like he was getting in the way of everything that was fun. Like I like went to Pete's Meats and they were like, "Oh, do you want a beer?" Joe's like, "No." And then like I got offered another beer from like I'm like, "Oh, we're back into the beer seat again." Like I had like a driver driving up Eldon offer me and he just cut that guy off. The guy had like a beer like out the window and Joe just ran right between me and he was just like, "Absolutely not. Like this is not happening." Um
Man, you were stuck in video game mode, you could never go in beer mode.
yeah.
You're just looking
Yeah.
to get out of that.
So, anyways, it was just a different experience and it was fun, just even to set out something and say like, "Oh, okay, like you're just making it up. It doesn't really matter to like anybody else, obviously, but
Totally.
you know,
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how the whole world works now too. Even if it does matter to other people, it matters for like 5 minutes, and then they're over it. So,
totally. So,
what other hallucinations? What other modes do you go in out there?
I go into full package delivery mode. So like, you know, I start seeing like that rocks are like Amazon and FedEx packages that have been like specifically delivered and dropped off on the trail for me. So I'll be like, oh, cool. Like, here's my resupply, you know, and it's a rock, you know, with a stripe on.
That's
Um,
amazing.
so yeah.
So video game mode, beer mode, which is probably just through hiker mode, and then package delivery mode.
Package.
These are
Yeah.
some good modes. I
Yeah.
always get in witch mode, which is a scary mode. I see a lot
Whoa.
of witches. The trees just become witches. And it's always like, okay, just moving by you. It's like when you're hiking by bison or something. It's like, all
Mm.
right, I'm over here. Don't cast a spell on me, but I'm just moving amongst you.
Yeah, I think I'm having less and less recently, and I think it's more because I just been getting so much more sleep at all these things. So I haven't really had these in a while. I realize for me they're usually a pretty direct correlation to like sleep.
Yeah, it would make sense.
Um, but yeah, that's about all the modes. I think I see a lot of wildlife. Like I had a kind of a crazy experience in Bigfoot once at those mountains where um it's already a wild course. I mean, you have
Uh-huh.
goats out, you have mountain goats out there, you have elk, sometimes even a rut around that time of the year. And so it's already a wild course. And um I had a local friend crewing me and he was a local Washington guy. And I started seeing monkeys like swinging in those trees out there. And my mind just was I just thought it was like I was already like thinking it was the coolest course ever. I was like, there's wildlife everywhere, but nobody told me about these monkeys. Like and so I just rolled into, you know, to get crewed and I just thought that my friend was holding back from me. I'm like, I cannot believe he did not tell me about these monkeys. Like these things are awesome. This and I was in such a good mood that they just didn't want to break my spirits. So they're like, oh yeah, the monkeys. Um and then so it wasn't until like almost a day later, like through the night, and I saw some sunrise that I had this like aha moment that there was not monkeys in the forest and that they were like kind of just lying to me the whole time and kind of being like a little demoralized and was like, I can't believe you guys didn't, you know, like tell
What
me
if
that.
there were? That would be so cool. There were monkeys
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
amazing. So, how many you've done? Like, I counted 13 200s, but I don't know. You might have more that aren't on Ultra sign up.
I think that's right. I mean, we have 5 Cocos, right?
Yeah.
I have 2 Moabs, 2 Bigfoots, a Tahoe, a Divide, and a Tour de Géants.
Yeah. So, what's the key? How do you successfully finish so many of these? Because I think this is the thing lost on a lot of people that these are hard to finish, and somehow I think you have one DNF, but other than that, you finish all of them.
All of them in a row since then. Yeah, I had that one after Grand Grand. I decided while I was out there in Utah 2 weeks later, I should just jump into the Moab Moab 240, which didn't didn't play out the way I thought. So
Yeah, so it's a quite a streak. What's the I mean, the Cocodona, the inaugural year was like you beat the cutoff by like 3 or 4 hours, but all the rest fairly healthy. What's the key?
yeah, it actually didn't feel threatening the inaugural year, although it you know the time was there. I actually left Sedona on year 1, I think, is the DFL, and that was the first time I actually found out what a DFL was, and I found out there was a trophy, so I left there like, "Fuck yeah, I'm getting an award for being last, like, this is awesome." And so I always joke around with Andre that he had, like, stolen my trophy that year, but, the truth is, like, I think it's sleep. I had slept, like, the whole night that night, and I left Sedona, like, 15 hours before the cutoff, but I wasn't worried about it because I felt so good, like, it's amazing how your body adapts and
Mhm.
specifically how it comes back after you've had good sleep. And so obviously sleep's something that you guys tinker with in terms of um, you know, getting in the podium or the top 10, like you're going to have to sacrifice and kind of ride that line probably to be up there. But, um, I don't think you have to just to finish. And a lot of times I think it's sort of understated how much faster you move, especially in technical terrain where you have to maybe think a little bit, once you had sleep. And so, um, it almost seems like once you've slept, it almost sort of feels easy. It's just a matter of how
Yeah,
fast you want to go and how bad you want it and what your goals are and all these things, right? So,
yeah, I spent a lot of hours out watching and hanging out at the finish line this year, and I was kind of thinking along that same line of, I bet like half the people who finish Cocodona would still finish and in just as fast a time, but enjoy the experience more if they just slept more. Like, I think more sleep, let's just say that, yeah, half the field just to be safe, because I know up near the front, you got to sacrifice some things, or if those are your goals, but maybe like 100 hours plus, you can sleep a lot and you'll move really fast. Me and Kevin Goldberg always say the key to 200s is being able to at least maybe jog a little or take advantage of downhills on days 2, 3, and 4. Like day 1 doesn't really matter so much. Everyone covers like 70 miles on that day, even though, or 80 or 90, even though they don't need to. And then they don't sleep and then they're in a hole. And yeah, what do you, that's kind of my new
I mean, uh,
mindset of you can sleep way more and get the same time.
yeah, I mean, it's totally possible to do, call it 19, 20 hours a day of moving and get 4 hours of sleep. And you're probably going to be a lot happier and move just as fast during that period of time. And, um, I think, people could easily still make the cutoff. And if your fitness is good and you can move during that period of time, you could be back of the front or top of the middle or any sort of way around there, and you could still sleep a lot and have a good fun. Like it's totally possible, right? Like I've been seeing it.
Yeah.
Like I'm gradually getting better at these things, and I'm not sleeping less. I'm sleeping a lot more, and I'm still having a lot of fun. So I think that there's like this idea out there that you got to be, you got to go to the well, and you got to be, it's going to be miserable, and everyone's going to have a low. And I don't know if I buy into that. You don't have to. Like
Yeah.
you could choose to go that route if you want to, and there's no judgment on either side. It depends on like right, like you pay for the race, or it's your time to be out there. You could have any experience you want to have, but you could totally choose to, like, have fun and, like, not be miserable and sleep and eat and still see a lot of beautiful things. Like, it's there, it's possible.
Yeah, I think there's just so much sleep you can get on that course because it is so runnable in spots that if you do sleep, then you're kind of set up for just enjoying the times you are moving a little bit more. I know Andy posts a lot about his hallucinations and stuff. You only finish an hour or two slower than him this year and probably slept like 10 times more.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think I had, like, 10 hours, 10-ish hours of sleep this year for sure. Um,
So you just feel so good at the end. You're like, just another day.
so aside from this past year on the 11 other 200s, I actually negative split every single one of them. Um,
Wow.
so I think that only happens from getting sleep, and then there might be something that I'm missing, like it's either cellular or kind of muscle memory about through hiking, but I feel like on day 1, it's exciting. It's like it kind of goes like a through hike. It's like day 1, you're excited to be out there. Day 2 is a complete revolt by your body. What are we
Uh-huh.
doing? And day 3, it's like, oh, this is what we do. Like I know what we're doing. And so I feel like I'm always, like, picking up steam usually in the later days, and I feel good, and hate to say it, but the more other people don't feel good, the even better you feel about yourself.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you do that at the beginning? How do you go out conservative or not? I mean, just negative split the race. How do you go out so conservatively that it works?
I don't know. I guess you have to just kinda check the ego and just know that, like, you're gonna see all these people later, like, every single person. You're like, "Ah, I'll see you later." You have to just, "I'll probably see you later." I usually verbally say that. I don't know if it's nice, but I'm like, oh, it's nice to meet you. I'll see you later. And um, I don't know. I used to probably want to actually be the last person to start, and so that way it feels like I just really make my way through most of the field outside of the very very front. But then it's tough because you get caught up in these conga lines and stuff like that. So for me, it's usually a mix of both. I usually just try to go out harder than I really actually want to, just for a couple miles to get separation, and then I kind of curb it, let all these people kind of go by once things kind of get spread out, and just not sort of think about it, I guess. I don't really, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it works really well for you. You're like the most sure thing, consistent. I mean, it is also funny. 6 of us 5-timers, 6 of us 4-timers showed up, and we all became 5-timers this year, even in like a pretty rough year. So there's got to be something said for that.
And it was fun. I got to spend a bunch of it. I mean, Jose and I did most of the first day together, and um, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it's fun, like, having each other's back, because once people sort of realize that you've been out there every year, now it just becomes a fest of, like, how can we pick your brain about what we should be doing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's all over. Yeah. 2nd
So,
or 3rd place and 6th place hung out with me for a little, and we're asking some questions, and it was like, I don't know, just keep doing what you're doing. There's 20 people ahead of you, and 15 of them will probably drop. Don't even worry.
it's so true, so
Yeah.
true.
And so I wanna talk a little bit
Yeah,
about tour because it sounds like such a
cool.
very different
Yeah.
experience than the 200s we know. Yeah, what was the intrigue of that, and what was the whole process and everything like over there?
Okay, so, um, from the time I did tour, I actually didn't know about it a whole lot more before that. It was very, like, the universe was sort of, like, poking me in that direction. So both years I ran Bigfoot, I actually marked Bigfoot and then ran Bigfoot. And so one of the years I was course marking, there was another volunteer that showed up that had DNF tour. And I was also course marking with a kind of a 200-mile legend, Tom Rogozinski. He's one of the guys that's on Bigfoot, like, I don't know, like every year or something. And so um, he was like blown away. What? You showed up to this thing called tour? And I was like, I've never seen somebody so impressed from somebody else that didn't finish a race. So I'm like, well, what is this thing all about? And he's like, you'll probably do it one day, Aaron. Like it's something. And so it was just the seed was sort of planted. And then 2022, right, was the year that, yeah, it was the year I did Cocodona and the Triple Crown. And it was actually kind of an accidental Triple Crown that year. There's sort of a side story. Make sure we don't get off a track here. But um, after Bigfoot, I thought it was the last race I was doing that year, and I left and I went to Europe. And so that was my first kind of Europe trip, and I went to go do the Alta Via 2, which is the Italian Dolomites, is like
Mhm.
a shorter through hike, um and I left like just a few days after Bigfoot. And so it's so funny how different like the goals are. Like I was actually most people were really serious about the races, and I was worried that the race was going to get in the way of my through hike.
Yeah,
Right. But instead, I was like, in hindsight, I was like really like thankful because I thought like all the vert sort of helped me to have a better time during my through hike because I didn't have to like earn trail legs. I felt like they were already sort of there. And there's a
totally.
bunch of vert on that route. It's only like 100 and something miles, but you get like close to 40,000 feet of vert. So it's a lot,
Phew.
while I'm out there. So anyways, I do this whole Europe trip, and, I come back in the country like 5 days before Moab, and I had some friends that were running it. They're like, "Oh, we want you to, look at our spreadsheets and give us advice." And I started having some like FOMO, and I was already in Vegas, which is only like not that far of a drive from Moab. And my car was already still packed up from Bigfoot because I had just taken off and like left the country. And so I'm like, well, I'm not that far away. I have stuff in my car. And I had done all this volunteer work for Destination Trails, like course marking and all sorts of other stuff. So I just sort of emailed the race director, and I'm like, and this is like 2 days before the race. And I thought I started throwing, I said, I wouldn't mind kind of getting my Triple Crown. And I know it's last minute, but like, I don't know how this works. Like, if you have a spot, like, is it possible? And they emailed me back and they were like, we don't normally do this, but you volunteered enough and we'll sort of let you in. This was Wednesday night. And so I said, well, there's one exception. I just really can't even make it there for race check-in. Like I had to work the next day. And so I ended up arriving in Moab at like 10 PM, like the night before the race started. After I was jet lagged, just made it back in the country the days before, had no crew, no pacers, didn't have enough time to do a drop bag. And I just threw on a backpack and did it like through hiker style. Like I had like a Polente pack and just kind of had like a smart water bottle and like a Pellegrino bottle from like my car. And I had like a sleeping bag I sent to like Shea Mountain. I just went halfway and slept for like 9 hours and then went the second half. And during the second half of that race, I ran into two amazing dudes who are actually running Cocodona next year, Bill and Jeff out of the Bay Area. And Bill's a previous tour finisher. And these guys kind of took me under their wing and they ended up feeding me, like bringing me to their van and like giving me trail magic and like pizza and beer. And I kind of like was crewed by their crew. And so they kind of like took me under their wing in the second half because they were just hiking it and I was just there to hike it and get the Triple Crown. And so I got 100 miles of just hearing tour stories and they were all cultural stories. Like nothing was actually about the actual course or the race or how hard it was or anything. It was all just funny stories because you had 72 countries represented in this area
Mhm.
and how unique like everyone's cultures are when they come together. Like everyone has a different strategy, a different eating strategy. People, you have language barriers. You have people
Totally.
have different trail etiquette about how they poop or how they sleep. And so there was just a lot of fun stories in there. And then by the end, I was like, God, like everything's pointing back to me. And at the finish line, Kevin was there and Gabe and some other people. And they were like, hey, we're all going to do tour next year. You should come join us. And we'll have like an American posse of like tour people. But I thought it took like 3 years to get in. So I was like, you know what? I might as well start this process. It sounds very intimidating, but I'll throw my hat in the ring in the
Mhm.
beginning of 2023. And I thought maybe after 2 or 3 years, I might be sort of ready. And I just got selected my first year and was like, holy shit. Like now I have to get, because even on paper, it felt really, really intimidating. Then I had a small taste of Italy. I knew how hard the mountains were. I remember thinking when I was doing them, like, I wonder if they ever even run a race on these things.
Yeah.
It's just a level of exposure, and so I was like really intimidated. So I hopped over to Europe, in 2023, which I toned things down and had a light year and just did Cocodona and tour.
Yeah, no
Um,
big deal.
no big deal. And like, light year is just a couple 200s. And I had the kind of privilege, I'll say, of getting out there early and through hiking the tour course. So I did it
Okay.
over 2 weeks, hut to hut, took pictures, uh, you know, um, I call it through hiker style, but it was a different experience over there because you can stay in the mountain huts and the refugios and you're still
Jeff
getting pretty good
Pelletier
sleep.
calls it
And
soft packing. So,
it's a great word for it. It really is. Yeah.
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 Um, but it was awesome because I kind of left there with um a little bit more confidence about the race going into it. But yeah, what specifically do you want to know? I would say that after I finished, I felt like I was never going to race in the United States again. I felt like it was a completely different league that like I felt like this is something I had been missing out on like my entire life. And like
Yeah,
I
what do
actually
you
get,
mean by that?
it just felt like it was a different level of difficulty
Mhm.
and like it wasn't even in the same league, it felt like.
Yeah.
And the level of athletes felt like it was a different league. Like I even knew that when I was hiking when, I all of a sudden would find myself like moving so slow up a climb and I'm seeing like a grandpa with his like grandchild like in casual clothes, like holding hands, like hiking on the gnarliest trail, just go up to a hut to have lunch for the day. And you're like, these people have just been born into this. Like you can't learn this stuff overnight. It was pretty humbling. So Yeah, it just
Is the atmosphere pretty wild too? Because it looks like spectators and pretty big finish line type
well, that
stuff
was
too.
yeah, you're right. And on top of that, you start feeling like you're a complete celebrity. Like, it doesn't matter where you're on the pack. Like, if you're doing that, and it became really clear even before the race, like, the Department of Tourism makes, like, almost all of the restaurants there have signage up, banners up. Um, every community's engaged. It doesn't matter if you're, over 70 or you're like under 10, you're probably like outside, like not working and not going to school and cheering like literally everybody on, like if they're running outside your porch. And so it's, yeah, it's a different vibe. Like, everybody's all about the mountains, and there's over 2,000 volunteers. There's more volunteers than runners.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
so yeah. And on top of that, it's just, we don't have mountains like that here. I don't think there's anything. The closest thing I could possibly like, and because I was trying to figure out stuff in the
Mhm.
U.S. you could do that would replicate climbing for the entire day and then descending for an entire day. And the closest thing I think I could come up with is if you went out and you did like the lowest to highest, and you were hiking up to Telescope from like sea level, like, because it would be like hiking in Colorado, but it would be like the towns would have to be like at 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet, which they aren't. So
Yeah.
there's no other way to really get that, the steepness of those valleys. You can't really recreate them here.
Mhm.
Um, it was only something you could do there. And just to think that you were just in one valley and then you spent the entire day and you're just sort of like in the next valley, sort of over.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was a new level of digging deep. Um, and, uh, and a different cultural experience too. With that being said, I mean, there was parts of it I actually didn't like as well. Like, it felt like, we were making too big of an impact. Um,
Yeah,
like
with so
if you
many
think about
people.
Cocodona at the time, there's 250 people. Now there's 1,250 people in a race,
Yeah.
trampling through one person's backyard in the same day. So, um, and on top of that, like again, you just have different kinds of cultural sort of etiquette. I mean, I think we all know what it's like if the PCT gets overused and you start
Totally, yeah.
seeing TP everywhere, and now you're seeing on the race, and I saw it all. I mean, I was, um, you know, uh, I think I was in 1100th place at one point in time, and I finished in 267. So I think I met probably the most amount of people probably than anybody out there. Um, and there was
So
a
you
spot.
passed 900 people? That's so crazy.
There was a time, I think we were 80 miles from the finish line, and I finally slept like a whole night. Like, I slept for like 7 hours, and then I went to like a bakery, and I carried out like an entire like backpack full of like pastries, and I just went straight through to the finish. And I think I had left that area like in 985th place, and then I finished in 267th.
The power of sleep right there, and,
Sleep and pastries.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, the thru-hiker diet and
Or
pastries.
pastries.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah, what else do you wanna know about it? I actually thought it was one of the coolest experiences ever.
Yeah,
Co
why haven't you gone back? Was it just seeing that impact?
I'm going back this year.
Okay.
One of the things that I noticed the first year is that on that Friday night before tour starts, they start Tour de Géants, and I see these people, it's like a 6 p.m. start, and they give them like a day and a half head start. Like, tour starts like on a Sunday afternoon or Sunday midday. These people are starting on Friday night, like into the night. And they get about a day and a half head start. They got to finish the same time, but they're doing like, I don't know, like 40,000 more feet of vert. They're not on trail. They're self-supported. They're doing the high route with like chains and ropes, and it's maybe like, I don't know, like 100 extra miles or something.
Wow.
And I'm like, these guys are like, and I end up seeing them, that they share some aid stations. So you'd be like on a ridge line, and a guy would just pop up out of like nowhere, and he'd be like, "Oh, where's the refugio?" And you're like, "Oh, it's this way." And you're like looking over the edge, like, where did this guy come from? And you would get to like a hut, and they all had like prime privileges. Like I would get to like a hut, and I would ask to sleep, and they would say, "Well, it's like a 2 hour wait to be able to nap for like 40 minutes. And you're like, oh my gosh, and so you would move along
Hmm.
and and then the Tour de Glacier guy would roll in and they would say, oh, your bedroom's down here on the right. Would you like to sleep for 2 hours? And you're like, wow, like, and then you would see the same thing for food. I'd go back and they would offer you the same thing. They would say, do you want the pasta? You want the zuppa e pasta and formaggio, like soup,
Yeah.
with pasta and cheese. And you're like, yes, I'll have the same thing again. And then the Tour de Glacier guy comes up next to you and he's got like lasagna and salad and like eggplant parmesan. And you're like, where did you get like, and so I'm like, I want to do that race like that. Like these guys, and they're not built like runners. Like these guys, their legs are like horses and they're big dudes. And you see them and they like float over boulders like they are like weightless, like 240-pound like fairies. Like it's pretty amazing thing. And so I got really inspired by that, and I would realize that I'd have to finish like I think it's in sub 120. So I'm like, unfortunately, fortunately, I get to go back to tour because that's the race that I really need to get to. Not just because of the experience, but if you just think about it, it kind of goes back to kind of our routes or maybe even the high route type of route where
Yeah.
it's like, it just seemed like the training for that would be so fun. It would be like, go out and never be on a trail. Like just go do the Sierra high route or the Wind River high route or, just go not be on a trail and get good at moving in like the hardest conditions. And that's probably the only way I would assume you could train for something like that. But,
Yeah.
so I am going back for another tour experience. I hope it's my last one. Um, just want to give other people sort of a chance at those ones too. I didn't know if I was gonna get in again, and again, I got in my first year, so I'm 2 for 2. I don't know. I wasn't expecting that, but I'm taking taking full advantage, and I'm headed back out to Europe here probably in a month.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, last topic. Where do you think Cocodona's going? Like, do you think it's gonna end up being like European races or like where the towns fully embrace it? And
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't think that clicked for me until I came back, right? Until I came
Mhm.
back from Europe, and you're like, "Wow, like, this is the closest thing that I mean, it's probably not accidental, I know that I'm
Yeah.
sure that that vision was there. But it's actually being executed. Did you do I mean, I felt it this year. It's not obvious that it's not quite to that level, but there wasn't like a town I went through where I didn't get acknowledged this year. And that was not like I'm going down downtown Clarksville and I had a construction worker at like 4 o'clock in the morning, like slam on his brakes and hop out. And he knew exactly. He's like, you're over. He's like, you have just over 100 miles left. Like you're killing. I'm like, wow, these guys actually sort of know you're walking in front of people's yards and they're like, you must be bib number. Like they're
Yep,
like tracking
that
you,
happened to me. That was so weird. A lady ran out of her front door in, like, Clarksdale and asked what my bib number was, and she's like, "Okay, someone's right up here," and it's like, "Whoa, you people are into this."
on shit. Let me make sure my laptop's charging here. Come on. Technical difficulties. All right. We're good. We're good. Um, and I had a guy in Sedona out on there and he knew the bib number and he was cheering it on and just, um, yeah, I mean, you could tell it's headed that direction. They got people, they got the communities fully engaged. Like I
And
don't
the
think there's any
finish
question.
line the finish line is becoming huge too. Like, the first year, it was like a little arch and not much going on. Now it's like vendors and everything.
Well, it's even coming down, like, even once you start hitting Buffalo Park, even when you're hitting Eldon and you're coming down, I mean, if you're getting that at the time where anybody's out there,
Mhm.
everybody knows that it's going on now. It used to be like, what is this
Yeah.
hallucinating, stumbling person doing, in our community? And now everybody knows, like, every car that's driving by on that street once you pop out of Buffalo to anybody that's on Beaver Street that day. I mean, it's pretty obvious that it's made a splash. So
Nurses come out on their lunch break from the hospital to cheer. It's crazy.
yeah, so this year, I was driving behind I don't know, a few weeks before the race, some truck, and I saw a bumper sticker that said, Moab sucks, tell your friends, which I assume sort of applied that person was sort of like OG in Moab. And there
Mhm.
it was kind of a funny thing about you're making our area too popular. And so it kind of gave us an idea and we got these like bumper sticker made called Cocodona sucks, tell your friends.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we were rocking that on the crew van this year, but it's like it's obviously such a joke. Like no, like it like that train has left the station. I'm not surprised at
Mhm.
all, right? Um, yeah, I mean, from a business end to a community end to community, like I mean the local communities and the community engagement. I don't think I'm surprised, are you?
No, not at all, and just with the route that passes through that many communities, I think that really elevates it as well, and just even the whole Phoenix to Flagstaff precedent just works out really well. I mean, so many things. I know they probably dump a bunch of money into that live stream and it doesn't pay for itself yet, but it's probably starting to because of what it's created. It's like
Yeah,
playing the long
it's
game.
probably a difficult one to manage. I mean, to be able to measure, like it's a tough metric to go convert, but no, it's there, and I think the international presence is the big one. When you start getting people, I happen to just take a view at the wait list this morning, and like I'm not sure if you met him out there, but uh, we have another Aaron who's an Australian finisher that did pretty well. He's a good dude. We had hung out a little bit before the race, and he came over from Australia to come do it. And now this year I saw like a dozen Australian people on the wait list. And tons of people from Great Britain. And, like it's when you start having people from another country come into America to be like, oh, this is
Yeah.
the closest thing that they sort of have, just like we would go over there. I mean, yeah, it's definitely here to stay. It's probably headed towards lottery type
Mhm.
status, I would assume. Um, hopefully we're just on Cocodona auto pay for the rest of our lives or reoccurring sign-ups or I think that's our suggestion out there if Cocodona wants to hear it, is that Ultra sign up needs a reoccurring button, so that way when we hit the green button, it could just say reoccurring, and we don't actually have to worry about, like, our alarms or, like, when to go sign up. It's just sort of set on a reoccurring sign up at this point.
I like that. Yeah, the
Mm.
inaugural year, like every year you stack your you get automatic entry. Yeah, I don't know. It's sort of the same thing as on the PCT when especially the German presence when that started getting pretty huge and there were a couple documentaries that came out. That's right around when the PCT needed to enact the permit system. So it is
Yeah.
that
I got
international
just at the
jump.
what was the last year you did that? Were you
I've been out there almost every year, but through hiked officially 2018. I did.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was out there in 17 and in 18. I had wanted to do it since 2012, I think.
And I
I
did
think
it in 2011. So you were thinking about it and I was out there and it was a different world back then.
I didn't even know about it. I mean, I that was my first trip in the Sierra, and I was carrying like a 60-pound backpack or something, and Um, I had ran into a couple PCT people that said they were just gonna through hike until their bank account was drained, and somebody told me they were doing 26 miles a day, and my head exploded, and we were doing like 8. So I think that's where I think I left there and found a couple documentaries like Tell It on a Mountain or some of these really old like PCT documentaries. And that's when I was like, I want to do it. And then I forgot the year they started having the permit and the wild effect. It might have been like 2016, I want to say, or sometime just
Yeah.
before I did it. And when that came out, I said, I have to do this like right away because like I wanted to do this before this, and now it's going to become difficult. And so I think I kind of rushed to do it in 2017. But you're right. Even when I had a permit, it was easy just to go on there and still kind of click your date. But you knew it wasn't gonna be like that forever, so
Yep. All the good things change. Just want to
yeah.
go back and do inaugural year Cocodona again. That was so fun. Or even
Yeah, that
this
was all
year. This year was fun too.
this year was fun. I told somebody out there, I said it was probably, like I think somebody asked me what my favorite years was, and I said 1 and 5 probably.
Yeah, I would say the same. I think
So,
this year was the mud was just it was all so stupid, which made it so fun. Like I think that's what I always look for. The dumber it is, the more you're like, wow, this is a dumb thing to do as a hobby. That's the more I love it.
yep. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, quick throwback though for you, I think, I don't think I knew who you were, but I have like a throwback. So I remember listening to like an OG podcast on the trail show, like
Oh, wow.
way back. Like I was like, I was like original like trail show podcast. And I remember there was like, I was driving around. I think you were maybe doing the calendar year. It was like, we're going to go talk to Legend who's out there doing the calendar year Triple Crown, and I was right there. I was like, who calls themselves a legend? Like,
Yeah, the
like
most
that was like
conceited name.
before I kind of like knew like any sort of story, right? And so
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah, I don't
I
really.
think those worlds kind of came together later where I think it was like year 2 of Cocodona. And then it was like, oh, there's another thru hiker. It's that legend guy I heard on the trail show. And then I think I passed by you like on an outback and I'm like, it's good to see another thru hiker out here.
Yeah, it must have been that second year, yeah, with the massive out and backs too and stuff.
Yep.
Okay, wrap us up with what's your trail name and how did you get that story?
Ooh, I don't have, so I got a couple trail names. I got to say that because there'll be
Yeah.
people out there. They'll be like, that's not the trail name I know him as. And so, but I'll say that, the trail name I most identify with is Food Boobs. Um, Food Boobs. So I had this like, you know, button down hiking shirt,
Mhm.
right? That's got the 2 pockets here.
Yep.
And I would just stuff them with snacks. And then once I threw my windbreaker over it, it just looked like someone said, oh, did you grow a new pair of tits? And I said, no, they're my food boobs. And then it kind of just sort of stuck. Um,
That's a good one. What's your other one?
Originally in 2017, I was just known as Loophole. And it was only because like in the Sierras, you have all the, um, mandatory bear can carries.
Mhm.
And to me, I knew you weren't going to fit in your food into a bear can anyway. Like nobody's going to fit it all.
Yep.
So I got like the tiniest beer can I could find. I remember one time we lined it up and everybody was like, had these huge beer cans and mine was like this tiny. And I'm like, well, they just say you have to carry one. Like, like the rest of it's just going to be my pillow. Right.
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
so they're like, oh, that's such a loophole. So that's kind of how I got that
Nice.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for jumping on. This was awesome.
Anything else, Jeff, man? I look forward to, seeing how many more miles we get in here.
I know. Yeah, it's really is the longest last person standing ever,
Do you
where
do you
every year we have to run 250 miles.
do you think that we need, some Cocodona addiction therapy or and just,
Yeah, I think we need like a private chat or something event once in a while about the good old days. All right, thank you for listening. I just put out a Substack, freeoutside.substack.com, on heat training and the history of it, which I think you might find interesting. So check that out. I'll probably link it in the bio or the description, but no one ever reads those. So don't even worry. You can support the show, patreon.com/freeoutside. And I mean, there's just so much content that I put out. I'm pretty amazing. So you can subscribe to YouTube. I'm putting out some more stuff over there. There's a TikTok, there's a Instagram, there's a Substack, there's a Patreon, there's podcasts on all the feeds, which we would love 5-star reviews. Anyways, that's basically what I got. And, as David Roach says,
You reached into my heart and just made it grow 3 sizes. So thank you.
and stay elite, my friends.